for tuning in to another episode of Escape the Mind Reviews. My name is Brandon, and I am joined by the Soulless Samurai, and we are here tonight to discuss Castle Rock Season 2, Episode 8, Dirty. How are we doing tonight, Soulless?
Doing well, Brandon. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm super excited to get started on doing this episode. Really quick, just so everybody knows, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Episode 8 of Season 2 of Castle Rock, stop now, go and watch it, then come back, because we're going to go through the whole thing.
Yes, there's your spoiler alert. By the way, I have a fun Today I Learned fact.
Nice.
This day in history, as we're recording this, is December 7th. On this day in 1963 was the first time they used instant replay in TV production in sports.
Oh, no way.
It was in Philadelphia, an Army-Navy game, and the producer, didn't even tell anybody he was going to do this, and he used these two tape decks that each weighed 1,200 pounds. They were sitting in a tractor trailer, and they didn't have any blank tapes, so they used old recorded tapes from I Love Lucy show.
No way.
So Lucille Ball, her face kind of flashes in and out of the instant replay when they showed it, but it was a touchdown that this guy just decided to go show it again, and the announcer even had to say, like, "You're not losing it, folks. We just showed you a replay for the first time. That didn't just happen again."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So it was in the Army-Navy game in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what year it was?
1963.
Wow. Super cool.
It was actually delayed a week because Kennedy was supposed to be there
Oh, wow.
that day, but got shot the week before. So they delayed it a week.
That's interesting. You know, it's now people complain that we get too much instant replay. So we go from the very first instant to now this, and I think it's good. We should get it right. You know, people argue now about the robot strike zone, essentially, where we could have a computer do balls and strikes for us now, and a lot of people don't like that. So it's interesting. I think it's good to be able to know that you got it right as much as humanly possible. And also, if we can improve upon our own human selves, then I think that's cool too. So it's nice to see how far we've come.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, even just the size of the things, like now it's just a really quick on a computer locally, just replay it for you. But now it's used to review stuff in sports and official reviews and whatnot.
I mean, just the ability to do video overall has come such a long way in our lifetimes. Now you can do 4K video from your phone pretty much.
True. I love watching like older hockey games and stuff where there's the score isn't on the screen. There's no clock. Like all that stuff kind of came incrementally.
Yeah, the advertising.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even speaking of hockey, you have the fake ads on the boards now where they're like
freaky.
Computer projected up onto the boards. So, yeah, man, it's come a very long way for sure. And it's a much needed thing. I know just from working in radio myself that advertising is a necessary demon in many instances because you got to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
But to the extent in which they push it, they take it to the nth degree most of the time for sure.
True.
All right, so Castle Rock Episode 8, Dirty. Again, if you haven't watched it, get out now, come back, and we'll talk more about that as we go. So we start the episode off with Anne and Joy being dropped off at the Marston house by the Goo Cult police officer. And one thing I want to say right off the bat is you were right. It was Parkman that was being burnt in the prior episode. I didn't think it was. You did, and you were right.
Yeah, apparently they don't tolerate
insubordination.
Yeah.
It's I didn't know that Ace would go that far in his non-toleration, if you will, of the talkback. But man, he really showed very quickly to the rest of the members of the Goo Cult that he's not going to take other people's opinions very lightly.
Yeah, how true. If you're not with us, you're against us, and you're gone.
I was kind of wondering if they were going to bring him back, like in a different body. Like, hey, we taught you that lesson, keep your mouth shut. But it doesn't look like he's coming back.
Yeah, that's a question that remains to be seen. Like, how much damage can these people take and still be brought back?
That is something that I actually have made notes on as we go, because that's one of the questions that I think is ever going to be evolving, is that are they ever actually truly dead, or are they not, or what have you? So we'll get into that as we go. So again, we start the episode off with Anne and Joy being dropped off at the Marston house. They are immediately greeted by Ace, and Ace asks them essentially how they're doing, if they're okay, and they're asking him immediately, like, why are we even here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Ace just basically says, hey, we're going to give you sanctuary, we're going to give you a place to stay, and we're going to allow you to get cleaned up. But if you leave, you're basically going to have to deal with all the consequences of everything that happened with the Rita situation.
It's a heavy implication.
I wonder, like, how did we really get here? How did the cops end up really getting her out of jail? Did she ever actually spend any time behind bars? Did they get her on the way there? It seemed like she was there for a little bit of time. I thought we were going to get to see that, but we didn't. We just got to see the aftermath.
Yeah, at the end of the last episode, I was wondering if they were already turned, the police officers that were interviewing them, and if so, what was going to happen. Now, I think he does say, come on, we're going to the station, but I'm pretty sure he just took them right to the Marston house.
That would make sense. The other thing I was wondering is, where are all the people that were staring at the statue? Were they still there staring at the statue during all of this? Like, there's almost no mention of it in the very beginning of the episode. It would just jump right into Anne being dropped off at the house, and they're kind of going through stuff. But Ace has left the center of town now, where he was there with the statue, and now he's at the house. It just makes you wonder, like, how did we get to this particular point?
Yeah, yep, they just throw you right into it.
Now, are the people that are in the parade that we saw at the last episode, do you think they're, like, entranced, or do you think they're possessed, or what do you think is going to be the ramifications of that?
Ooh, I was assuming entranced. It might be a little bit of possession as well. I'm under the impression that they're entranced and they're enthralled with the statue, so it obviously has a lot of power. I have my theory as to who that kid is, and I believe even just the image of that kid is enough to affect these people. And that's why, in my eyes, it could be one of two agents of chaos in the King universe, but I'm pretty sure this goes all the way to the top level by how much it enthralls people.
It's one of the things that I think is funny is we're, like, literally 2 minutes into the episode, and I already have all these questions.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I noticed was during the introduction, you can hear, like, the smoke monster sound or the lake sound right before the intro hits. And I don't think they ever did that before. So I don't know if that was, like, foreshadowing as to, like, what's to come, or perhaps entangled in everything. But I was just interesting that I picked up on that. I don't think they ever did that before.
Yeah, I think that's on purpose, and I think it's pretty important. Just like when they were on the lake and Joy made mention of it, that was the first that we had heard of it, but it's definitely becoming more and more of a factor here.
So we find out pretty quickly in the next scene that what appears to be the ever-growing majority of the town has joined the procession for the statue kid. And so it's interesting to see now that this has continued. They're making their way towards something. We don't yet know what.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like people are just ever marching into this and being enthralled or entranced by this statue. There's no mention of what happened to Pop, though. It's just we're just following the crowd.
It definitely has an area of effect, and as it moves through, it's just pulling more and more people.
But it seems like from what happened to Pop that if you don't look at it, you're okay. Like, you could be really close to it as long as you're not looking directly at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's implied pretty heavily, I think, yeah. Because he sees a reflection of it, and I guess intuitively knows not to turn around and look at it, and that's what everybody is focused on, and immediately books it out of there.
Now, one of the things that I'm kind of wondering is Pop had letters in his desk when Nadia was rummaging through his desk between the warden that had the kid locked up and I think there was someone else, and I'm sorry, my brain, it's escaping me right now, but he knew
it was Alan Pangburn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So he knew that those two were talking, and he knew that they had that kid locked up.
Yep.
So do you think that when he saw that statue, that he knew what that was as soon as he saw it?
Yes, I do. I think he knew that something was immediately wrong, and he needed to get out of there. And I'm pretty sure he's seen that face before in those letters. And he also visited the prison, was down there, and made an even deeper connection with those letters and the things in those letters. I think that's why it kind of struck him pretty hard when he went down there.
I think that's an interesting angle that I didn't really think about the first time it happened, was because I thought about it after the fact that, oh yeah, they had those letters. So I really wonder if immediately, like as soon as he saw that reflection and saw that statue, if he was like, that's that fucking kid.
Yeah. And he knows that people are making deals with bad people.
And so this ever-growing crowd is really starting to lean towards the whole town of Castle Rock might be fucked. Like,
yeah, it's scary, right?
We were talking about how cool that would kind of be, because I like the idea when you can essentially rehatch everything every season, that literally you could burn the town to the ground every single season.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like things are headed in that direction. And it reminded me a lot of the Walking Dead intro. Like they looked like almost zombies that were kind of rolling through the town.
Yeah, definitely.
So in the next scene, we find out pretty quickly that it looks like Ace is going to swap out Anne's medication for pills that look similar but aren't actually going to interfere with the weaving process. Ace tells Anne that everyone needs some help from time to time, and Anne and Joy can spend the night and keep away from everyone. He also tells her that if she leaves, she'll have to deal with the information and dealing with the cops and dealing with the ramifications of the situation with Rita. And also the Child Protective Services and all the other stuff that Anne doesn't want to deal with, she'll have to answer to those as well.
Again, heavy implication. Like Dennis from It's Always Sunny when he bought the boat.
Now, the other interesting thing here is that Anne has been in this house before, and she immediately starts to notice how different everything is from the last time that she was there.
Yeah, and she also knows what's under the house.
So Anne, not to give away as much as she knows, starts to ask Ace about the changes and how so many things have changed over such a little amount of time. Ace says that he thought that if they could make changes to the house, then they could change anyone. Once Anne and Joy are alone, Anne tells her that as soon as they're able to, they're going to get out of that house. But shortly after, Anne starts to hear someone whispering her name in the background. And this sounds different than the prospector Bloodface guy that we talked about from before that we found out was her dad. So what I'm wondering at this point is this Rita? Is this her mom?
It sounds like a woman.
Yeah, it totally sounds like a female voice versus before it was the male voice that she was kind of hearing and then seeing that entity. I wonder if we're going to get to that point now. That is this a mental break for her? Like, is this her not getting her meds, or is this now Rita, now that she's dead, starting to come back and manifest herself through to Anne? I wonder where this is going to go.
Well, this house too has women who've died in it. There's corpses underneath of it. There's all kinds of stuff. It could be Amity.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, because I mean there are a lot of different sources in which it could come from, especially when you have so many souls that have passed inside the house. Maybe it's the house itself.
Yeah,
we don't know if the house is male or female.
That's a scary combo right there.
There you go.
Ann Wilkes teams up with the Marston house.
So in the next scene, we see Body Snatch Chris is speaking with the Body Snatch real estate lady, and they discuss the fact that Anne is in the house and that it clearly is for the fact of trying to reincarnate Amity.
Yeah, they're all in on the plan at this point.
And they're kind of overseeing a painting on the wall that looks like the downtown of Castle Rock burning. So it makes you, like, literally, I wonder now if they're going to burn the town to the ground.
That's the old farming method, slash and burn.
So the real estate lady tells Chris that his job is to essentially body snatch Nadia now. And so we see immediately that Chris shows up to her house. They talk for a moment. He starts getting a little snuggly with her, but then he wraps his hands around her throat, and he starts trying to strangle her. A fight ensues, and she ends up getting out her stethoscope, getting it around his neck, and then choking him unconscious.
Used to be used to save lives, now it's used to take them.
I was wondering if she killed him or if she just knocked him out. Because, I mean, it's like, we've done jiu-jitsu before, and you can essentially render somebody unconscious. It doesn't mean that you killed them. Like, yeah. So I was just wondering, like, or even if she did kill him, is he going to be able to pop back up after this?
Yeah, we don't know. And
Ace did it twice.
True.
Couldn't Chris do it?
And she's really freaked out, but we also see her survival skills.
Yeah, she showed them one time before, but we get to see him again. She can definitely handle herself.
Mm-hmm.
And we also find out that the furtherment of the Goo Cult's plan is that they're going to cut the power and the cell phone service off for the town. So essentially, no way to communicate out, no power to the actual town. Let's ensue this plan of chaos, if you will, essentially deteriorating anything that they can.
And putting things back on their level. These are people who aren't used to those technologies and stuff, but geez, man, when you think about really scary scenarios, that's probably the scariest, most realistic thing about this. Like, could you imagine what would happen in a small town if you took away just internet? And then what would happen if you took away power and internet?
Yeah. How quickly would, or at all, could emergency services respond?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's huge, man. Especially like cellular network. I just think you would see society just evolve very fast at this point. We're also relying on all that stuff, especially electricity.
And how quickly before people start trying to take advantage of that and, break into places or do what have you if there's not going to be any ramifications for your actions.
Yep. Which the Stand gets into that pretty good.
Okay.
That is the psychological element of the Stand. It's more like a virus wipes out most of mankind. The people that are left aren't, smart enough to man the power stations and all those things. And then how the people that are left deal with that and how base that they can get. You get just a look at people trying to do good and, like you said, the people who are trying to take advantage of that.
Unfortunately, you always find that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
So Nadia arrives at the hospital with Chris's body. Immediately, I want to know how long is it going to take before he pops up off of that cart. And I thought as soon as she walked away away from the cart and down the hallway, I thought he was immediately going to pop up behind her, but they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So the real estate lady seems to find some of Joy's drawings in the house, and it appears that someone is either keeping someone from falling off a cliff or maybe holding someone off a cliff. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if this is maybe the kid holding Amity off the cliff, like a test of faith or something, or maybe he killed her and brought her back, and then that's how she was able to help spread his message thereafter. I don't know.
That was kind of my take. I thought I saw him holding her over the edge and possibly killing her.
Okay, so it's weird how Joy would have the inspiration to draw such a thing unless something was compelling her, or maybe she was having memories of another, memories that were kind of being imprinted onto her from Amity. Is it just the house itself giving that ability to transfer those things between the dead, Amity in the basement and Joy inside the house? Does that allow them to communicate more, or were all of Joy's drawings being sourced from this somehow? I wonder how far it goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, we also saw Rita doing some doodles and stuff, so that might just be stuff from her real mom.
So do you think that Ace is maybe having a misconception, or the real estate lady is having a misconception as to what those drawings really mean then?
Could be, yeah. I think whether or not it is actually a correlation, I think they see it as possibly being one.
This basically breaks down to the real estate lady asking if it's really Anne that they should be body snatching, and if they should switch that up and make it Joy that they're going to body snatch for Amity instead.
Mm-hmm.
Which was something I was wondering in the beginning was Ace trying to get Joy, or was he trying to get Anne? And I thought maybe that was an indication when he left Anne at the house that he really wanted Joy, but I don't think he even had any idea of that at that point. Mm-hmm. I think he was all in on Anne until he had the drawings brought up to him.
You're right. He still seems stuck on Anne, but there is the added thing with Joy of she's not on any medication. She's broken to the point where she's questioning who she is, what she's going to do in life, who is important to her, all those things. She is ripe for that taking. And then Anne definitely is a very strong character.
And a strong-willed person,
Yeah.
So Ace goes to the crypt to tell Amity about Joy and the whole situation, and on the way out, we see him emerge from the locked room. So we now know that that's what the locked room door was, that was in the house was the way down to the crypt.
Yep. The goo room.
The goo room. I love it. So Anne's in the kitchen. She's making some tea. And Ace tells her that anything that Joy needs, he will make happen. A favorite meal, new clothes, new art supplies, and even medication if she needs it. To which Anne replies that she's fine, she doesn't take medication, which we know is exactly what Ace really wanted confirmation of.
Mm-hmm.
Anne asks Ace what's behind the locked door, which we all know that Anne knows what's behind the locked door.
Mm-hmm.
And Ace replies that it's the basement that they're refinishing, and he doesn't want anyone to get hurt. So after Ace walks away, we hear Anne overhearing that whispering voice to her again. And I'm wondering, like, how quickly is this going to escalate?
Yeah.
Like, is this going to be something that's going to slowly deteriorate over several episodes, or is this going to build to a peak?
Yeah, I mean, it's new and interesting that it seems to be a woman that's trying to speak to her. But we also know that the weird prospector guy has been following her for a long time, and we only see him every once in a while. So,
And we know we see him because he died and killed him.
right, yeah. So, who is this person, and what role are they going to play in her psyche now?
So back at the hospital, Nadia gives Chris some psych meds that apparently thinking he had some kind of like psychotic episode or mental breakdown.
Yeah, so she was using Haldol. I saw it on the bottle and I had to look it up. It's an antipsychotic drug that decreases excitement in the brain. It's used to treat schizophrenia, control motor movement, treat verbal tics like Tourette's, and is also used to treat severe behavioral problems in children. I was thinking that it was more of like an adrenaline shot, and that's how she was trying to bring him back. But yeah, it's an antipsychotic.
So after giving him the meds, Nadia is able to speak to normal Chris now. I didn't really like this at first. I thought it was kind of dumb. But as it kind of progressed through the episode, I felt like it was a little more okay with it. I just don't understand how he's still in there.
Right? Yeah, it's a tough sell, and it was also tough to know which Chris we were hearing, because at times he would try to play it like he was the real Chris, but and then he kind of like does the full turn. But yeah, it was maybe a little cheesy at first, but I like the way it played out.
The other thing that I thought that this is another time now in the episode when Nadia was bringing Chris from the house to the hospital that we had another incredible feat of strength. Like, I don't doubt that she's strong. I don't have any doubt in that at all. But just how hard it is to move dead weight of a person and then getting them from point A to point B. And they did this conveniently off screen again. It's like the third or fourth time we've done this now.
But to be fair, she loves this guy. So she might be able to just adrenaline, get some freak strength to do this.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible for sure. I wonder how many times you're going to have that off-screen thing happen. You got to show him moving the body at least once. So back at the house, Anne is hearing the whispers again. We find out that the whispers are coming from her mom, and her mom tells her, "Can't you see what those dirty birds want, Annie? Can't you see you're just giving them what they want? You're distracted, and you're distracting yourself with your dirty words and your dirty books, just like your father did."
Ooh. So, hey, I'm here to help, but I'm also going to take you down a peg.
And we can kind of see her mom at this point. And very much like her dad, which was the blood-faced prospector guy, now we have mom who looks like she's been down at the bottom of a swamp for like a long-ass time.
A little waterlogged ass time.
So Anne runs to the bathroom to go take her pills. She kind of almost stops for a moment to notice that they're not her pills, but she's like so desperate that she just pops them in her mouth anyway. And then this weird tidal wave of water crashes through the bathroom mirror, knocking Anne to the floor. I tried to play it back a couple times to try to like make out exactly what is said, but all I can really hear her mom saying is something about filth inside and make her clean. We see Joy make her way downstairs, where she's met by Ace. She asks Ace why he's being so nice to them, because he clearly wasn't very nice in the beginning.
Yeah.
And during this, we see Anne start to make her way downstairs. What's important is, as Anne is making her way downstairs, she hears someone coming up out of the basement. And if you look really close, it's Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely been body snatched, and we wondered if he just got offed or if he actually got snatched, and he
Right.
definitely got snatched. So that's got to come back around at some point.
Yeah. It was a little sneaky how they showed him, but it was definitely intentional.
So Ace tells Joy that an appalling man that she met from the time before, his time was up now, and that now he's nothing but a distant dream. And he says to her, "Wouldn't you like to make a change, Joy? After everything that you've been through?"
Mm-hmm.
Terrible thing to see someone die like that, to have it be your fault that they died. And I think Joy's pretty taken back by this, and she tries to get out of the room pretty quickly, but Hassan's there and he grabs her, and Ace tells her, "Fear not, because she won't have to worry about dealing with that grief for very long."
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's one of these scenes with Joy and Anne that are happening probably at different times. They're all sequentially happening on the show, but I think what's going on with Anne is happening much later, and what's going on with Joy was a bit earlier.
Okay. Yeah,
While
I see
Anne
that.
was having her psychotic breakdown is when Joy essentially got snatched.
Mm-hmm.
So Anne's able to make her way down into the basement where she finds a pile of dead bodies that we mentioned earlier at the bottom of the stairs. And I'm wondering, is this the rest of the Goo Cult? Are these people from the parade? Or is this non-consequential dead bodies? People they took and then were like, "Nah, I don't like this body." And then they just kind of left it there to rot. What was the purpose of that?
Yeah, there's no real discerning things to be able to tell who they are. I was also wondering if it's maybe the people that were body snatched, if that's their real body and they're really dead. But that really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's where it's either there are going to be more Goo people that are coming, or maybe it's failed weavings, or I don't know.
Now that you mention that, I think that's a good point. It might have been people that they tried to body snatch and connect with, and it didn't work for whatever reason. They just discarded them.
So then we're back at the hospital where Chris is attempting to overcome his weaving, and Nadia runs to look for more psych medication. She hears some of the Goo Cult enter the hospital and say that if they find anyone, they're basically going to shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
Nadia then scrambles to get Chris back into the medication room with the electronic lock on it, and she hits him with even more medication. We then are shot back to Anne, who's running out of the basement full of bodies. She ducks into the bathroom, or a washroom, and it appears that the Goo Cult have Joy and aren't letting anyone in the room with Joy till tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Anne is then back to hearing the whispers, and she turns to have Swamp Mom right in her face, yelling, "Find her and get her clean."
Mm-hmm.
So 2 questions. Number 1, can you really just use some Dawn or some soap and get the goo off you and you're good? Could you pull someone out, scrub the goo off, and then you're still you?
I don't know. Nadia touched it in that one episode. I think she had gloves on.
Yeah.
But it seems like they have to be lying in the goo for a while for that weaving to take place. So
if you get them out, scrub them down with Dawn like a baby duck in some oil, then you might be all right.
Yeah, maybe some OxyClean, some Chipotle way, get rid of that goo.
So 2nd question, could we possibly get a new TV show where Joy is inhabited by Amity and she's been rescued by Anne, but now Anne keeps her captive, kind of like Shaun of the Dead style?
Oh, snap. This is a spinoff I didn't know I needed.
Yeah, right? So then you essentially have Anne and Joy watching The Wizard of Oz, but Joy's in chains and she's possessed by this other person, but yet Anne's mental breaks won't allow her to come to being okay with it. So we could have this whole spin-off episode thing. I think that would work out pretty well.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I want to see this happen.
All right. So back at the house, Anne is in full psycho mode. She grabs a knife from the kitchen and she heads upstairs. She finds the bartender, Heather. She kind of makes a little bit of noise to draw her towards the door. She cracks her in the face with the door and she lunges on top of her with the knife to her throat, asking, "Where's Joy?" She tells Heather, "Look at what you made me do," which I always thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
Heather points to the opposite room, and when Anne's attention is averted over to that other side, Heather slams the knife down into the ground, breaking part of it off. This is where Heather makes a critical mistake, stabbing her in the shoulder rather than in the neck or something that would kill her. And Anne basically What was that?
You done messed up, Heather.
Yep. And so Anne basically goes off and just starts slashing her throat several times over. Guess who's back? Crazy Annie's back.
Yes. Yeah, she really starts going just full misery.
So Anne makes her way into the next room and up some more steps into what appears to be an attic. She finds Hassan outside of that room, and he's outside of a locked door, looking like he's kind of keeping guard over the room. Mm-hmm. So Anne looks down and sees a sledgehammer at the bottom of the stairs. She lays Heather's body out at the bottom of the stairs, and you hear her scream. Hassan comes running down the stairs, and he's greeted by the sledgehammer to the dome.
I really thought she was going to, like, smash some ankles again, a la Misery style. When I saw that sledgehammer, I was like, oh, this is right in her wheelhouse. This is her weapon of choice.
So what I thought was interesting is this is the second time Hassan's been taken out by hits to the dome. Check your back, bro.
Yeah, he obviously hasn't learned.
So Anne makes her way upstairs and into the locked room to find Joy. You get a nice little jump scare when Joy smacks the board across the door when Anne opens it up.
She ready too. Both of these gals can swing things.
That's true.
Don't get in there.
It must run in the family.
Swing. Yeah.
So Anne is greeted again by her mom, the swamp mom, telling her that she needs to kill Joy. It appears that Annie is able to kind of break the momentary spell that her mom has over her and tells Joy to stay with her and to not make a sound.
I didn't realize till you said it in that way, like the literal interpretation of Killjoy. Like her mom is literally being a killjoy.
That's hilarious. Yeah, she's the ultimate killjoy for sure.
Yes.
Oh, man. You know, it's seeing, I didn't think that her mom could be more frightening, but making her into Swamp Mom is like that much more terrifying.
Yeah. Yep. Looking like Sigmund the sea monster.
And the other thing is that you see what her teeth have turned into, and her past affinity for dental hygiene, I'm sure, would really bug her out. That if she's not pissed off about everything else, she'd be mad about the condition of her teeth.
The rot starts in the back.
So Anne and Joy make their way outside of the house, and they run into what appears to be the congregation of the parade. It has stopped at the Marston house, which I was wondering if they were going to go to the cliff and just march everyone off the cliff.
Like lemmings?
Yeah, like lemmings, exactly. That's what I thought was going to happen. But, I mean, it appears to be at a resting place here at the house.
So how much is this character tied into Amity's storyline, and in that vein, Annie and Joy's storyline? Were these people brought here to make sure that one of them gets turned into Amity? Is this just an army, essentially, that showed up on the doorstep to take care of them? It seemed really scary and felt really scary to open that door and just see all of those people there.
Yeah, it's so hard to know the motivations of someone who barely ever speaks.
Indeed. Very good point.
So we flash over to the hospital where the situation is escalated and the Goo Cult members are holding a patient hostage outside of the locked room.
So we should mention that they were successful in cutting any power and communications out. So she's trying to call Abdi. The power in the hospital is out. We're down to a really scary base level of humanity again.
We flash over to the hospital. The Goo Cult members are holding a patient hostage and trying to get Nadia to open the door or threatening to kill the patient. Chris tells her, because he's still real Chris at this particular point, that he feels like he can hold back the person that's inside of him and for her to let them in. A tussle ensues. It ends up with both Goo Cult members dead, but Chris has been shot. Back at the house, we see Anne and Joy are making their way through the people in the parade. They're spotted as they're making their getaway. They end up seeing a truck with an open door. They try to make their way towards the truck, and Anne and Joy are separated because the crowd begins to move.
Yeah.
Joy is swept up in the crowd, and as Anne is grabbed by the cop, it appears that Joy is either under the same trance as everyone else or faking it really well, and she's been making her getaway now towards the unknown fate of the parade.
I'm glad you said that. I thought the same thing. Is she faking it to get away from Anne? But I don't know. The last shot they show of her walking in that parade, she looks like she's in. She's heard the noise, seen the statue, whatever it takes.
So that was the end of the episode. We see Joy start to get possessed, if you will, or entranced by the statue.
Mhm.
Anne looks like she's been re-snatched by the goo cult. And it looks like things are deteriorating for the situation with Nadia. And looks like Chris might be out of the equation now.
Yeah. So,
Oh, really quick. One of the interesting things that Chris mentions, because she talks about trying to save him, and he says, I'm already gone.
yeah.
So that was one of the things that I thought maybe didn't make the fact that Chris was still in there so bad,
Mhm.
because it's like, okay, you got reanimation of Chris, if you will, but it doesn't mean that all of these people are now saved from their predicament. They did die.
Yeah. He's obviously never going to be the same.
Yeah, so even if they ungooify the town, these people aren't coming back, it would appear.
Did you just make up a word?
Sure did. So, all right, I have so many questions after this episode, and I want to make sure that we get into those. If you're still with us, make sure you crush that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Each and every little bit of love you gives us, we feel it quite a bit, so we do appreciate it.
Let us know your theories. Tell us we're wrong. Let us know if we missed anything.
Yeah, exactly. Let us know if you're enjoying it. Let us know if you have any constructive criticism. We're all here. Don't forget, we're also on Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find us.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, are Anne and Joy back in the embrace of the goo cult, or are they basically going to have to fall back now on, well, Joy's gone, so we're going to have to use Anne, or is Joy basically right where they want her, and they're just going to lock up Anne and use Joy anyway? What do you think?
I don't know, man. They're all interesting theories. I'm really concerned for Joy at this point. I'm wondering what's going to happen with something you've mentioned with the quote-unquote Losers Club. Now that we know that that kid is definitely turned, how is he going to affect that friend group? And I think some serious things are about to go down, because with Joy and Anne separated, Anne is now at full desperation again. She's going to find a way to get to Joy, but it seems like Joy is utterly gone.
I mean, if I'm Ace, I'm just going to off Anne at this point if I have Joy. If I can get Joy back locked up again, I'm just going to kill Anne. You're too much trouble.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like those people are affected by the sound or the statue.
Well, you could almost argue that they're like the children of the kid at this point. Like they've been infected by whatever he is, and if his magic or power or what have you has already helped bring them 400 years into the future, I'm pretty sure they're good.
Okay, so you think that those two things are tied together?
Totally.
This statue, because
the kid essentially like gifted them the scarabs that they then ate to then make that, allowed them to transfer across that,
True.
death, if you will.
True. It just seems odd to me that they seem like they're not affected by that. And the only other person that we know of, well,
I just think they're under the
two
same,
people
all
at
of those things are related. Like all that power is coming from the same source.
But like your everyday normie people are following that statue like ducklings, and
because they don't have they're not already being driven by that.
they're not gooified yet.
Yeah, exactly. So like
Part
if
of the
you're
steps.
saying that like
But-
the goo in itself is a result of the power of the kid, so they're already under his spell, if you will. That's why they don't seem to be affected, because they're already, this entire time they've been under those actions or under that control.
Okay, they are the ones that brought the statue
Exactly.
and knew that it would transfix everybody. It just strikes me as odd that they're not affected as powerfully by it, and also Pop and Anne aren't affected by it. So I'm wondering how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I think Anne's just kind of dumb luck at this point that she didn't look up. And I think with Pop, I think you could argue that once he saw the reflection that he knew it was the kid, and he was like, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, calculated dumb luck.
Yeah.
He knew just enough to get out of there. And it seems like Anne just kind of has those survival instincts as well. But the other two people that we've seen in the episode that aren't affected by it are Nadia and the other patient in the hospital.
I think the
But it
other
seemed like-
patient was not affected because she couldn't hear or get up to go look at it.
All right. Yeah, there we go. That's maybe a clue too. Everybody else in the hospital left.
Yeah, but so the other lady was just, she benefited from the fact that her hearing wasn't very good and she was immobile. She couldn't go see the statue. So whatever the sound was, she couldn't hear it. And whatever the statue is, she couldn't see it.
Awesome. For her.
Yeah. Well, to then have to get offed by random people strolling through the hospital thereafter to find, stragglers is not great either. But yeah.
Yeah, the cleanup crew.
So are all the goo members that were offed in this particular episode, do you think they're staying dead?
I really don't know. Like you said, we've seen Ace come back. I think Chris might be done, but I'm not sure. I believe we mentioned it earlier. How far gone does somebody have to be? How much do you have to hurt their shell before they can no longer come back?
Yeah, is it like a zombie where you got to sever the brain connection essentially, or
Well, my man Hassan got whacked in the back of the head a couple times.
Yeah,
he's definitely got some brain trauma going on, but he's still out there.
And the goo has some healing properties, obviously, so it depends on the extent of it. Would they have to bring Chris's body back to more goo, and then he'd be okay? Is there an amount of time you can be dead that you could be away from the goo? Or is 400 years pretty much like you're good?
You're on borrowed time at that point already.
So the next question I have is Nadia gonna find Abdi? And where the fuck has Abdi been this whole time? This whole episode, we've gotten no Pop, no Abdi.
Yeah, maybe Abdi is part of the followers. Maybe he got sucked into that. We can only hope that he's not, and he shares something with Nadia in that regard. I want to see him come back and make good with Nadia.
I still think things are leaning towards my theory. Nadia and Abdi, what's the remainder of the loser club versus the entire town, essentially, or what's eating the entire town, essentially. And it's the wild cards are Anne and Joy as to whether one or two of them or none of them will be involved in getting this unraveled.
Yeah, I like your theory there. And so far, everything's played into it.
Since we saw the mom try to get Anne to kill Joy, and her dad says, you know how this ends, you have to kill her, are both of her dead parents trying to get her to kill Joy? Because that would be super fucked up.
Yes, yeah.
And why? Like, I understand for the mom, she's got clear motivations because she's who she is, but for the dad to feel that way? Or
that's his child.
Were they talking about two different people? Was dad talking about Rita and the mom's talking about Joy? I don't know.
Man. She's got options. She's got options on who she could kill still.
So do you think at this point we're going to get a second scene of Anne breaking out Joy, or is this a wrap for one of them? Like, do you think they're going to off Anne because she's too much trouble? Do you think Joy is going to be made into the Goo Cult member? Where do you think it's more than likely to go?
I think Joy is, at least for now, gone. And I think that that's going to cause Anne to go off the deep end and really inspire her to fight back. Whether or not she can actually get Joy back, I'm not sure. I would have thought that Joy would have been in that club of people who, didn't hear this thing, weren't transfixed. She really seemed like she was going to be a strong character who was going to make it through just based on the shit she's been through and everything. And then you just see her join that horde and you're like, oh shit, okay, maybe she doesn't have a chance.
Yeah. My only form of criticism so far for this one was just the things they didn't really show in this episode. So like the Nadia moving the body, I didn't understand how Nadia could go from her house to the hospital, and it wasn't until she hit the hospital that she realized that everybody's missing.
Good point.
So those were the only two things that kind of took me out of the episode as I was watching it.
Okay.
Where my mind's like, give me a break. But other than that, I really did enjoy the episode overall. So I think that leads us into, for you, out of 10, what would you grade this episode?
Well, 1 second, because I have one big lingering question too.
Oh, okay, awesome.
And that's who the kid is.
Yes, okay, great.
Who can this guy be?
Yeah, where are we at this point in feeling like, is this kid the devil? Is this kid some other entity? Do you think there's anything? It seemed like last time when we were talking, you were kind of narrowing in on a character in the Stephen King universe you thought it might be.
Yeah, so lower level, I think it could be Randall Flagg or the Man in Black, the gunslinger. They're one and the same. They are an agent for the Crimson King, and they're agents of chaos that work for the Crimson King. This kid could also be the Crimson King because of the way that people are so transfixed by him and how he almost has this religion based on him. I want to go out on a limb and say that this kid is the quote unquote Lord of Discordia or the Crimson King. He's also known as Ram Abala. He shows up in the Dark Tower series like he is the antagonist at the root of everything. And he is Stephen King's version of Satan. Crimson King, basically the Red Devil. He shows up in Insomnia, and you get a much better view of how the Dark Tower works and how these dimensions weave in and out of each other and how you have a positive and a negative force. He's also brought up in Black House. He is a trans-dimensional demon, and that's the most that we know about him.
Is there any like origin stuff on him at all, or no?
The last 2 books of the Dark Tower really
Okay.
dive into who he is and that character in general.
Cool. So if people want to find out more about it, they'll know when they get towards the end of the Dark Tower.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Insomnia is kind of rough to get through the first 400 or 500 pages. You kind of don't know where it's going, what's going to happen. If you are familiar with the Dark Tower and have read that, it's really fun to go back and read because that last half of the book has so much Dark Tower lore in it. It's just dripping in all that lore and canon and sets everything up for the Dark Tower. I think that's really huge and really pivotal to read either before or after you read the Dark Tower, but it's such a huge keystone of the Stephen King universe.
I think that sounds super interesting. I wonder if the people from Hulu are the people that made like JJ and Stephen King and the folks who were behind the show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big piece to be able to lend to someone to make a show off of, and they kind of have been building that from jump with even through the first season, because you see all these people that have these bad things happen just from being in his presence or looking at him or a picture of him or what have you.
Right.
So do you think that they felt that they weren't biting off more than they could chew right off jump? I mean, it's a pretty big entity to pull from.
And that's one reason I'm thinking it might not be the Crimson King.
Okay.
Because I think that would just be too much all at once. He might be Flagg though, Randall Flagg.
Or the Man in Black per se.
Yeah. Now he was Randall Flagg in The Stand. He's the guy that basically influences all of the negative characters in The Stand. I want to say he's also in like Desperation and Needful Things, also as Randall Flagg. He's got a huge lifespan. Like they make no bones about the fact that he's in all these different time periods. Like he's the evil Count of Saint Germain.
There you go. Yeah, the dude's lived through decades and decades of life for sure.
Mm-hmm. It could also be something like Pennywise, because in the Dark Tower they talk about these different entities too, and like Pennywise is only one of those natural negative forces. He's a chaos factor, but there's also ones that are like based around sadness, mania, and all kinds of stuff. So he could be a quote unquote god in that mythology, or
So
like an archangel.
Instead of feeding off of fear, he would feed off of a different emotion, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. I'm really worried that we're not going to get any resolution at the end of this series, because we've got 2 episodes left.
Yep.
There's still all these questions, and they didn't answer who this kid is in the first season. They might just drag us along, not answer it in the second season, but it's really fun to wonder who this kid could be.
I mean, I guess you could argue that they could not answer it, but have him continuing to be an agent of chaos through every season would still be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could slowly pick and choose little spots to drop hints as to who he really is, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you think out of 10? Where are you sitting at with episode 8 of Castle Rock?
7 to 8. I'll go 7.5. Again, we're left with a lot of questions. But we were also given a lot of answers. This was another setup one though. They seem to do like a setup episode or 2, and then do a bunch of reveals, and then a setup episode or two, and then a bunch of reveals. So it does a really good job of leaving me wanting more, for sure.
That's the tough part, though, with JJ stuff is like, are we going to get to an actual finite ending that has any kind of oomph to it, or is it just going to be it just ends where it ends? You know, I'm a little jaded by my past watching of Lost, so I always go into stuff with JJ with a little bit of skepticism, but I've enjoyed the ride so far. I would say I'm about in the same spot, about a 7.5 for this particular episode. It is definitely building towards moving, where this is going to go. We had some cool death scenes in this one. It was fun.
Yeah.
We had some different, some jump scares. That was fun.
We're seeing Anne go much more misery Anne that we're used to, and I've been waiting to see if she's going to turn into. I'm hoping she starts just reverting to that dialect too of like cock-a-doodie.
I think if the next 2 episodes are really good and hit hard, then I think this will definitely be a very worthwhile season overall.
Yeah,
it could still fall flat on its face, I feel like, though.
It's been really entertaining for me so far. You can say the same thing about some of Stephen King's works. Like I've read a lot of his short stories, the novellas that just kind of, they don't have a definitive ending. It just leaves you with things to think about, and I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I felt like season 1 was, and ultimately I really enjoyed the ride, and everything up to the very last episode I really, really enjoyed. I just felt like the last episode just left me wanting more, which isn't a bad thing.
No, and now we see that if they do that, there's a reason, and we can only hope if they don't wrap this up that season 3 just expands more upon it and they come back to any of these elements. Curious to see where it goes. So
yeah, and I like that they're taking the risk of actually maybe burning down the whole town. Like, let's eviscerate everything and then we'll start over again. I like that they went that far.
I really want to go back and revisit the stories. I think it's a story of Jerusalem's Lot, and then a short story or a novella specifically called Salem's Lot. And there's a TV series. So I kind of want to go back and view them as well, because I thought that was much more of like classical vampires. This might be something completely different. So maybe those bodies were people that were eaten by the vampires. Maybe this house is hosting, it's just a messed up demonic people hostel.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different places they could go with this. I mean, you could almost have the house being a reoccurring character in the show now, depending on where they go with it. So it's cool. I'm really enjoying it so far. I have high hopes for where it's going to go. So make sure everybody stays tuned for that, and make sure you keep going with Escape the Mind reviews. Make sure you leave us a like. Make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys have enjoyed. Don't forget you can email us at escapethemindproductions@gmail.com. Don't forget we're on Twitter at ETM Productions, and Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud. We're out there.
I'm on Twitter as a Soulless Samurai.
Yeah, so give us a follow. Let us know your thoughts, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thanks for listening. Keep cool.